Welcome again to the Sacred Tarot channel. I'm Chris Butler. If you remember in my last video, I promised you I would take you through the contents of some of my tarot treasure chest, which I sort of did briefly. What I'd like to do today is actually show you the work of one of my very favourite tarot artists. I would say that this guy's work has probably influenced me more than anyone else. The range of decks that I've got on the table today are very, very precious to me. So I hope you'll enjoy going through them with me as much as I'm going to enjoy going back through them again and actually just celebrating a really fabulous artist. This is the work of Ciro Marchetti. So here we are. You can see that the table is actually quite full again today. Not quite as full as it was last time, but what you can see from here is that this is a very, very prolific and creative tarot artist. He's one of the best. I would say he's probably one of the most celebrated as well. Many of the packs that you see here on this table have come to be regarded as classics. And one in particular, I would say, has probably come to be regarded as the greatest modern classic of its time. But for me, it all started here in this rather beautiful black treasure chest. So cast your mind back, if you will, to 2003. And I can remember I'd not long discovered the Eclectic Tarot website, which is a fabulous database of card images. And there were 6 card images from this deck posted. And it was released in 2004 as a limited edition. And I would say this is probably my most treasured tarot possession. You can see here, this is the Gilded Cara by Ciro Marchetti. It went on to be published by Llewellyn Publications. It has been reprinted countless times. As I say, this really is a modern classic. To the best of my knowledge, it's sold over 1 million copies. The artwork is stunning, but it all started out like this. There was so much demand for this deck that about a year, and the images online had caused so much excitement that about a year before its publication, Ciro put out this limited edition of 150 copies. They were stunningly presented. They each came in either a box like this, or the later copies came in a luxury purple and gold velvet bag. They came with the certificate of authenticity. That one states that mine is deck number 34. And then came the deck, which I'd never owned anything like this before. I mean, just look at this. I'm going to put it on top of here for now. This is thick. These were printed to fine art standards, and they're almost the thickness of beer mats. They are just stunning. When I first saw this deck, I can just remember thinking I'd never seen anything like it before. I still think it's wonderful. This was one of the first real digital decks, as I would call it. I mean, Ciro is he's an award-winning Photoshop artist, and for me, this revolutionised tarot. I'd certainly not seen anything like it at the time it was released. It was so rich, so colourful. But also so multi-layered and vivid. His imagination is just amazing. I mean, these are traditional cards, but he kind of just, every single image kind of got a new and slightly humorous slant to it, I think. He's very much influenced, I think, by the whole Venetian carnival kind of ethos, and there's a certain amount of that spreads through to this deck. You can see here, this is the Magician, the High Priestess. They are just stunning. These were very, very highly sought after. I was lucky to get one of these. I don't think I'll ever part with it. You know, they are just wonderful. Believe it or not, despite the thickness of the cards, I mean, that's only part of the major arcana, and you can see how thick they are. I still read with this deck. I got that in about 2003. I mean, as I say, in 2004 it was published, and you can see here, this is the commercial edition. What I love is that what makes these unique, you can see that my High Priestess is in this incredible aqua blue dress, but if you go into the standard edition, let me just find her, she's in white, and that's actually one of many subtle touches and changes that he made to make the sort of the limited edition decks unique. You can see here that the lady in strength is in a grey dress, whereas in my limited edition deck, if I can find her, where are we? That's the Chariot. There she is. She's in red. And as you go through the cards, you'll find that there's lots of individual small differences like that that make it very, very special. So as I say, that's probably one of my most treasured possessions tarot-wise. So that is the Gilded Tarot. This has gone on to sell millions. It's also now available in several other editions. The deck proved so popular that Llewellyn eventually published it in just as a standalone deck without, I mean, you can see here it's got the wonderful companion book by Barbara Moore. It's now published as a deck on its own, which just comes with a little white book. Very similar box to this, but it's also part of a very, very good beginner's tarot set called Easy Tarot, which comes in an orange box. I think it features the Judgment card and several other cards on the front. And that's a very highly thought of beginner's tarot book by, I think it's Josephine Ellishaw. So, as I say, this deck is still available. If you don't have it in your collection, do get it, because it is one of those cornerstone classics of the tarot world. Really beautiful, and I think it's a deck that everyone should have. That was kind of the beginning of the story. That was Ciro's first deck, but he's gone on to do so much more. I was very lucky in that I was, at the time when this was all coming out, I was working on my first tarot deck. I struck up an online friendship with him, and he just gave me so much encouragement for my own work. I always kind of view him as being about 50 steps ahead of me. And it's always my biggest challenge is that whenever I do something new, and each new deck I've done, this is my inspiration. It's one of my major inspirations. The thing is, I never know. I know that I'm never going to be able to match this. But that's kind of what makes it a constant challenge. And, you know, as we go through these, you'll see that even his work has gone from strength to strength. This is wonderful. But, you know, there's so much more beauty and wonder on this table to show you. I'd like to go up here. This was his second deck, which was a beautiful, beautiful surprise for me, because, I mean, if this wasn't good enough, to then find out 5-6 months later that he was working on something else. And this is the Tarot of Dreams, which has since gone on to be published by US Games, which is still available today. This was the first edition, which was quite revolutionary. You can see the cards are quite large. The title card here is a Tree of Life card, basically linking the major arcana with the positions on the Tree of Life. Again, I mean, you can see very much his trademark style. Beautiful fantasy. It's always with a slight touch of humour, I find, as well. But I remember seeing this. I thought this was lovely. An amazing inspiration. The Empress almost literally growing out the ground and holding a baby. Very, very beautiful. This was very revolutionary because it's the book. This came with a wonderful book by Lee Burston, but for the first time, the book was available as a CD-ROM, as an interactive CD-ROM as it was at the time. You slotted this into your computer and it gave you animated versions of the cards. There was all sorts of other goodies on there. As I say, the full text of the book, a range of extras, screensavers, desktop wallpapers. Wonderful. And as I say, it was the first of its kind. It was a very, very popular deck. Again, this was done as a limited edition, not quite in the way that the Gilded Tarot was. These were kind of more like commercially printed cards. They sold out very quickly, but eventually the demand was so high, Ciro released it in a second edition, which you can see here. This time just with the book in physical form. Lovely magnetic clasp box. The cards were smaller this time, but he made a couple of very important additions. You can see from here, Palace of Wands. He added 4 extra cards, a palace for each of the 4 courts, coins, cups, swords and wands. Lovely, lovely little addition, and actually which makes for very interesting results in readings, I find. All of a sudden, you know, those court figures have their own environment, which is actually a very unique idea. Beautiful. So again, that was his second deck. Second edition, again, sold out very quickly. Went on to a third edition with larger cards, again self-published, gold edges and a solid box. But then that was picked up by US Games a couple of years ago and is now available in a very, very nicely presented standard edition. I don't have it here to show you. The one major difference I will say is that the cards have different borders. You can see these have very elaborate, sort of almost, I don't know what the steampunk, medieval sort of design. The US Games edition have much plainer borders, just black fading into the images. All the symbolism is retained. Very different but equally beautiful. And some people may prefer them if you feel that the sort of more elaborate borders detract from the cards. I like both, and I do have a very great fondness for this anyway, so it's sentimental value as much as anything else. So what else have we got? I'm just going to come down here. This was Ciro's third deck. This is the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. I only have this again in its limited edition. This went on to be published by Llewellyn Books. It's still in print, still very popular as a deck and book set. This has a very, very interesting concept behind it because it's actually based on a sort of fantasy story of a lost civilization. The idea being that sort of the tarot and the imagery contained within this tarot contain the secrets of this civilization. So again, it was something quite new and quite innovative at its time. The images speak for themselves. I mean, the more you look here, the more you realise that this is, this is someone with such a unique vision. I just love his sense of colour. Everything is so rich, but then it's kind of, I don't know, it's never fully daylight. These images always strike me as sort of quite twilight, which I love. What amazes me is that this guy has done so many decks, and yet he always seems to have something original to say whenever he does a new one. It's not just mere repetition. Let's just go down into, you can see into the Minor Arcana. There's one particular card I want to show you here, which actually online sort of became quite a cult image, really. And it's this. This was the first image that I think anyone saw from this deck. It's the Queen of Wands, and it's actually, I think if you go onto Ciro's website, I don't know whether it's still there, but there is actually a video that showed this is a real person. It's an amazing woman who was a dancer, and it was basically when Ciro saw her in sort of dance outfit that he was inspired. He photographed her, and he turned her into this incredible Queen of Wands. Yeah, she's one of many. They're all utterly beautiful. This one I love, the Eight of Cups. It very much captures the traditional sense of the card, that sort of walking away from a situation that you can no longer sort of improve on or change, or maybe it's just gone a little bit stale. But I thought, what a clever way. And also a really fantasy-laden way of showing it. There's this merman with, sort of, upper body of an amazingly handsome man, and yet the lower body of an octopus just sort of reaching out towards the moon and, swimming away from those glasses. Just amazing. Yeah. So, as I say, that's the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. This limited edition obviously is no longer available. These cards are much larger. They're not as thick again as the Gilded Tarot cards, but they're very, very durable and again printed to archival art standards. Standard edition, as I say, is still available from Llewellyn, and I really would recommend that you explore that, particularly if you're a fan of Ciro's work. I would say this is my personal favourite. This is Ciro's Oracle deck, the Oracle of Visions. I use this a great deal. I don't use many Oracle decks. I'm a great lover of Lenormand decks. But in terms of standalone Oracle decks, not coming from a sort of established tradition, I'm just not that good with them. But I am with this. And I use this alongside, I would say, 2 or 3 other oracles. But this is my mainstay. This and the Psi cards are the 2 oracles that I love the most. they're incredible. One of the things I loved about this was that when he was working on them, and also in the book, he's written the book himself, which is beautiful. But one of the great things that I like is that he kind of says, well, read the book by all means if you want, but also it's just as valid to kind of throw the book out the window and just use these cards intuitively, and that's very much part of what they're about. They are, I think for me, why this Oracle deck works so well is they're so multi-layered. There is, not just in the images, there is layer upon layer of meaning in here, and the meaning is in the detail. You really can lose yourself in these images and meditate on them very powerfully. I found these visually, one of the reasons I love these is there's always kind of been quite a Venetian sort of theme and feel in Ciro's work, whereas what I like here is this, you start to also get a feel of Victoriana in these cards, and that's something that he's kind of developed in subsequent decks as well. Yeah, again, standard in that he put it out as a limited edition. You can see this beautiful box with a lift-off lid, book, CD of extra goodies, again, CD-ROM of extra goodies, which is kind of quite a trademark of Ciro's. Luckily, even though this is no longer available, it went on to be published in an equally beautiful edition from US Games. The book is smaller, obviously. What we don't have here in the standard edition that you can see in the limited is these beautiful gilt edges. Everything else on the standard edition is the same. I mean, you can see just standard edge cards, but the quality of the print really does do them justice. So this is one instance where, even though obviously this is wonderful and anyone would want that, nobody buying the standard edition is going to be shortchanged. US Games has done a really beautiful job. Solid box with lift-off lid again, and the book, you can see, it's quite detailed. Not printed in colour in the way that the limited edition was, but again, the cards are what matter. Absolutely gorgeous. Coming down to here, I mean, one of the things I love about Ciro is he's just about tackled everything. Thankfully for me, I'm a great lover of Lenormand decks, and here we are. This is his Lenormand. This is the Gilded Reverie Lenormand. It's pointless me saying anything else about the art. I think it speaks for itself. You can see, I mean, his trademark style shines through. Limited edition here with extra cards, and standard edition by US Games. Originally published without the extra cards, but the extra cards, so many people actually wrote into US Games and asked for the extra cards and asked Ciro for them that US Games are in the process of publishing an expanded edition with all of the extra cards that he designed. Again, one of the lovely touches for the limited edition for me is just with the Gilded Tarot, as with the Gilded Tarot, there are a lot of differences in the cards, subtle differences. So you can see here in my limited edition, the rider has this, purple sash scarf floating around her, whereas in the main, in the commercial deck, she's wearing red. The same with the roof of the house; it's red on the commercial deck, purple on mine, and on the ring card in the commercial deck, all the stones in the ring are red, whereas on my limited edition, they're green. Just a lovely, lovely individual touch that makes you feel that, with your limited edition, you have something quite special. As if these decks weren't special enough already. What else have we got? Finally, let me just close the lid here. This is something new. Again, I have the limited edition, but not the standard edition, which has not long been out. It's published again by US Games and A.G. Muller in Switzerland. This is Ciro's take on the Mystic Kipper cards. This is a German system. I'm only just getting to know these, so this is a new system for me. He's taken that traditional German system, which is kind of a parallel system, I suppose, to Lenormand cards, but he's kind of interpreted them through the image of sort of turn of the early 20th century Victorian Edwardian. Very beautifully done. As I say, this is kind of a new and exciting journey for me, in that I've never worked with these before. It's lovely to learn a new system with cards that are done by one of your favourite artists. That just makes it so much easier. So yeah, it's a bit of a ramshackle video presentation on my part. My table is covered in cards, but you can also see that my table is covered in the utmost beauty. This is the work of Ciro Marchetti, as I say. If you, I think most of you will have already come across Ciro's work. If you haven't, do begin exploring. Any one of these decks will just take you into an amazing new world, and actually a very special little country on its own within the world of tarot. You can visit Ciro's website, which I will put up at the end of this video. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed these cards. As you can see, I enjoy them. I'll be reading with them for many years to come. So thanks for watching.